Hello, Muslim friends in the world. The sky should have still been dark, but that morning, the city's horizon glowed not from the sun, but from raging fires and flashes of light from missiles hurtling in from the east. Defense alarms wailed in succession. The Israeli metropolis, usually bustling with nightlife and heavy traffic, suddenly fell silent before descending into chaos. In the skies, the Iron Dome defense system worked relentlessly, trying to intercept the ballistic missiles traveling at supersonic speeds. Some were successfully destroyed mid-air, but not all. Two massive explosions rocked northern Tel Aviv, one in the industrial district, another near the port. "We thought it was just a drill," said Dalia Levi, a Tel Aviv resident who had just managed to escape from beneath the rubble of her apartment building. But then the sky turned red. "We knew. It was real." Israeli military sources reported that the attack was part of the largest wave of ballistic missiles ever directly launched by Iran at Israeli territory, marking an unprecedented escalation in the regional conflict that had long been waged behind the scenes. Meanwhile, live broadcasts on TV screens around the world showed flames in the city center and long lines forming at underground bunkers. International media began calling it Tel Aviv's darkest day, a morning that was supposed to be ordinary, now turning into the beginning of a major crisis that could shake the world's geopolitical map. Iran has claimed responsibility, calling the attack retaliation for the bombing of its facilities in Syria. Israel's defense systems are reportedly overwhelmed, with over 180 missiles launched within the first 3 hours. The Israeli government has yet to release an official statement. Rumors suggest Netanyahu is in a secret bunker south of Jerusalem. Amid the panic and flames, one question is beginning to form in the minds of Israelis and the world. Is Tel Aviv still safe? Or, more terrifyingly, has the city already fallen? Dawn had just broken over Jerusalem, but inside Israel's national security complex, the atmosphere felt more like a grim twilight. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sat in silence in the underground command center, the pit, a hidden war room beneath the Ministry of Defense compound. He stared at the large screen in front of him. A digital map lit up with red dots marking the Iranian missiles that had breached Israeli defenses. A message came through from the Air Force commander. "We're out of interceptors. We need time." For a leader known for his stubbornness, rhetorical prowess, and unshakable resolve, Netanyahu looked different this morning. His shoulders slumped, his gaze empty. This was no longer just about politics, it was about history and the survival of his nation. Above ground, the Israeli parliament, Knesset, was beginning to fracture. Opposition members called for an emergency vote of no confidence, accusing Netanyahu of failing to anticipate Iran's escalation and being too fixated on internal conflicts in Gaza and the West Bank. "We warned him, but Netanyahu turned a blind eye. Now Tel Aviv is burning," said Yair Lapid in a live broadcast speech. Even some members of Netanyahu's own coalition were wavering, discreetly reaching out to foreign diplomats, a clear sign of a growing internal crisis of trust. Intelligence reports indicated that Iranian missiles had not only struck infrastructure, but also targeted communications and radar systems. That meant one thing: the attack was designed to temporarily blind Israel. Now, Netanyahu was trapped, physically, politically, and militarily. The world outside demanded answers. But what could he offer? "Mr. Prime Minister, the U.S. President isn't answering our calls," reported an aide, pale-faced. "Europe?" Netanyahu asked, still in an emergency NATO meeting. "They're withholding any statement." Silence. Only the low hum of the underground air conditioning filled the room. Israel's financial markets collapsed. Stocks plummeted. Embassies abroad began evacuations. The message from the United Nations was clear: de-escalate or face total isolation. Netanyahu knew with every second he failed to act, trust in his leadership was eroding, from within the country and from its allies. Strike back now and risk igniting a full-blown regional war. Hold back and he could lose everything, his office, his legitimacy, even the unity of his nation. Prime Minister, we need a decision. Now. He stood, slowly, staring at the map of Tel Aviv glowing red. Call the chief of staff. Prepare the Samson option. The room went dead silent. The Samson option, Israel's doomsday retaliation plan, to be used only when facing existential collapse. Was it a bluff, or the desperate decision of a leader who felt abandoned by the world? In a hidden underground chamber within the Pastorin IRGC military complex, General Esmail Khani, commander of the elite Quds force, pressed the final green button on the missile control console. Seconds later, from a stealth base in Kerman province, 6 Sejal 3 ballistic missiles launched into the dark sky, tearing through the atmosphere at hypersonic speed. The operation had a name, Zaryavel, the first morning star. For Iran, this wasn't just retaliation. It was a message. We can burn the heart of Israel whenever we choose. According to leaked intelligence reports picked up by foreign media, Iran's main targets in this strike weren't just military bases or defense sites. They aimed for the civilian heart of Israel. Avivim Technology Center, the hub of Israel's military AI development. Hashalom Tower, a symbol of Tel Aviv's economic strength. Herzliya Coastal Desalination Facility, supplying water to over 1 million residents. Ashdod Port, a vital node for Israel's military and logistical operations. This isn't a military strike. It's a political message. Iran wants to show it can dismantle Israel's life systems. Power, water, communications, said a London-based security analyst. Following the initial barrage that overwhelmed the Iron Dome system, a second wave struck 45 minutes later. This time, Iran deployed Fateh 110 missiles and Shahid 136 kamikaze drones launched from positions in Iraq and Syria, forcing Israel to defend from multiple directions, scrambling its radar detection systems. We're being attacked from the air, from the sea, and from within. This isn't a war, it's an invasion, said an Israeli defense official. In Tehran, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei appeared on national television dressed in full military uniform, a rare and symbolic move. We do not seek war, but if our home is trampled, we will set the enemy's cities on fire. We have not yet unleashed our full strength. If the Zionist regime retaliates, we will bring fire to Jerusalem. The statement rattled the international community. The world now understood. This was no longer Israel versus Hamas or a shadow war with Hezbollah. This was Israel versus Iran. Directly, global oil prices spiked 23% in just 6 hours. The United Nations held an emergency closed-door session. Saudi Arabia and the UAE declared neutrality, refusing to support either side. Turkey called it an opportunity to rebalance Middle East power dynamics. Most shockingly, Russia and China issued a joint statement urging Israel to exercise restraint. For the first time in 50 years, the world faces the real risk of a full-scale multilateral conflict in the Middle East. Within the first 12 hours, over 75 missiles successfully breached Israeli defenses and struck vital targets. For the first time since its founding, the Israeli government is reportedly considering partial evacuation of Tel Aviv's civilian population. We can't say Tel Aviv has fallen, but we also can't say the city is still standing tall, said a trembling journalist from Channel 12 Israel. The city, once dubbed the New York of the Middle East, now lies in near darkness, broken only by scattered fires glowing in the distance. Streets are deserted. Power is out across many districts. The scent of smoke and rubble has replaced the usual salty breeze of the Mediterranean night. Behind the towering skyscrapers, many now cracked and blackened, millions of civilians are packed into underground shelters. Train stations, basement parking garages, even school hallways. "We don't know if morning will come," said Shira Dehan, a mother of two taking refuge in the underground tunnel of Sabotage Station. "We just want to survive the night." The Israeli government was forced to shut down power and communication networks in certain areas to prevent further targeting. But the move has left many citizens cut off, without information, without aid, and without hope. Ichilov Hospital is overflowing with the wounded and now runs solely on emergency generators. Mobile carriers report that 60% of networks are down or heavily disrupted. Clean water is running low in southern Tel Aviv. All that remains are the sounds of sirens, distant explosions, and the cries of children. Tel Aviv's Metropolitan Police report they are out of manpower to stop the looting erupting in damaged shopping centers. The military, meanwhile, is focused solely on air defense, leaving civilians with little to no protection. "We are no longer citizens. We are victims waiting our turn," said Abby Rosen, a retired IDF soldier. Images of once glittering Tel Aviv are now everywhere. The Israeli center partially ablaze, a symbol of economic collapse. Gordon Beach strewn with debris and military vehicles. A burning Israeli flag in front of City Hall, now viral on social media. CNN and Al Jazeera have called it the most shocking fall of a modern city since Kiev during the early days of the Russian invasion. Yet in the midst of the night, points of light begin to emerge. Not from the military, but from the people themselves. A restaurant owner opens his kitchen to serve free meals in shelters. Medical students take to the streets, treating the wounded on sidewalks. Community radios broadcast emergency updates over analog waves, sharing news and hope. Tel Aviv has not surrendered, but everyone knows it is no longer the same city. While Netanyahu remains hidden in the command bunker, and Iran declares its readiness to launch a fourth wave of missiles, Tel Aviv endures night after night, without certainty, without full protection, and without any guarantee of tomorrow. We don't sleep. We stand watch. This is not an ordinary night. This is the night our city wagers with fate. While Tel Aviv continues to battle flames and dig bodies from the rubble, the world's diplomatic stage remains eerily quiet and cold. One by one, Israel's traditional allies are stepping back from the conflict, leaving Netanyahu's regime increasingly isolated in what now feels less like caution and more like betrayal. The White House issued a single formal statement. "We are concerned by the developments in Israel and urge all parties to exercise restraint." There were no promises of military support, no fleets deployed, no explicit expression of backing for Netanyahu. Even more damning, internal reports from the Pentagon revealed that the U.S. president declined to activate the direct hotline to Netanyahu, choosing strategic observation over direct engagement. Israel has acted too far, too often without consultation, said a senior U.S. official, speaking anonymously. In Brussels, NATO stands divided. France refuses military involvement. Germany offers only moral support, pledging no new weapons under current conditions. Italy and Spain have even proposed a full arms embargo on the Middle East. "We cannot defend a state that throws fire into a fuel tank," declared the Belgian foreign minister. Meanwhile, Israel's longtime adversaries see a rare opening. A surge of solidarity spreads across the Muslim world. Hezbollah declares readiness to open a northern front from Lebanon if given the green light by Iran. Hamas and Islamic Jihad escalate rocket attacks into southern Israel. Houthi militants in Yemen claim to have launched drones toward Eilat. Massive protests erupt in Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, and Indonesia, forcing their governments to take clearer stances against Israel. If Tel Aviv falls, it is by the will of God, declared a prominent cleric in Tehran during a Friday sermon broadcast to millions. This crisis hasn't just cornered Israel. It's shaken the global balance of power. Russia and China continue pushing for peace mediation, not out of pacifism, but because the moment to challenge Western dominance in the Middle East has finally arrived. Israel has lost its aura of invincibility. The world has changed, wrote a columnist for The Economist. Israeli embassies in Amman, Rabat, and Istanbul have been shut down following threats of mass unrest. International air travel to Tel Aviv is suspended. Israeli passports are now being rejected in several Arab nations that once normalized ties. Netanyahu is now truly alone. His diplomatic power has collapsed. His allies are retreating. His enemies are closing in, and his people are losing faith. In the stillness of night, Netanyahu once again stared at the digital map, now burning brighter red than ever. "No one is coming," he muttered quietly. His aide bowed his head, silent, because everyone knew, even God seemed silent tonight. While the world watches Tel Aviv burn and Netanyahu buckle under global pressure, a far more terrifying crisis is emerging, one from within the very heart of Israeli power. A highly classified IDF document containing the coordinates of Iron Dome defense systems, military supply routes, and elite government evacuation points was leaked publicly on an international dark web forum. The file was titled Rezim Zion _V1, and below it only one chilling sentence: "This is not war, this is retribution." Mossad immediately launched an investigation. A specialized counterintelligence team conducted rapid forensics. But initial findings revealed something deeply disturbing: internal access, high clearance, an insider. All eyes turned inward, toward Israel's own security cabinet. Someone within Netanyahu's inner circle had leaked a national secret. This wasn't done by an external enemy. "This is sabotage from the very heart of power," said a senior Shin Bet agent, anonymously. Netanyahu began suspecting everyone. Strategic briefings were held in secured rooms, no phones, no records. Some ministers were barred from emergency meetings, while others were interrogated in secret. "This is no longer a democracy under wartime emergency," said an opposition lawmaker. "It's become a paranoid regime ruled by a frightened dictator." A leak from German media pointed to a senior defense official who had clashed with Netanyahu over the Gaza campaign last year. But some investigative journalists suspect something darker, that Netanyahu himself might have fabricated an internal enemy to shift focus away from the destruction outside. Is the leak real, or just a tool to consolidate power? In the midst of war and fire, the truth turns to ash, wrote Haaretz in its editorial. Meanwhile, eerie messages began appearing on the dark web from an anonymous account claiming to be Leviathan, an Israeli official allegedly resisting the Netanyahu regime. One message read, "They knew the missiles were coming, but they let it happen for political reasons." The post went viral. True or not, the public clung to the theory that the government had intentionally allowed the attacks to justify a national emergency and crush political opposition. The opposition has threatened to impeach Netanyahu if sabotage is proven to come from within his circle. The once frightened public is now furious. Protests have erupted again in Haifa, Jerusalem, and even inside several shelter zones. "We're not just under attack by Iran," shouted a protester outside the Knesset. "We're being destroyed from within." Netanyahu is now besieged not just by enemies beyond the border, but betrayed from within, judged by his own people, and haunted by the potential collapse of his once unshakable rule. This nation isn't losing a war. This nation is losing trust. The sun blazed over the ancient city, a place usually steeped in sacred calm. But on this day, the streets surrounding the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, were flooded not with prayers or flowers, but with fury. Netanyahu must go. Zionism is not tyranny. We don't need bunkers. We need leadership. That was the voice of the people. Tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands, had come from across the country. Haifa, Ashkelon, even the wounded heart of Tel Aviv. Banners, megaphones, and faces contorted with rage demanded one thing. Louder now than the roar of missiles overhead. In the past week alone, Tel Aviv was partially destroyed. Thousands lost their homes. Iran grew more aggressive. Allies turned away. And now, a traitor was revealed inside the government itself. To the public, Netanyahu was no longer a protector. He had become the symbol of failure, isolation, and deceit. They told us to endure. But for whom? For him? Said Yael Meir, a schoolteacher who lost her husband in a missile strike. The opposition did not stay silent. In an emergency Knesset session, a vote of no confidence was submitted by 3 separate blocks. For the first time in over a decade, Netanyahu's hold on power was officially under threat. Even more shocking, some members of his own coalition began to defect. The finance minister resigned. The deputy prime minister declared a moral crisis. The IDF chief of staff called for a national emergency government. Without Netanyahu, Israel cannot survive in the hands of one man. It's time for someone else, said a senior member of Netanyahu's own Likud party. Public transportation ground to a halt. Medical unions refused to work except for emergency care. Port workers shut down logistics routes. IDF reserve pilots refused to fly. The nation stopped, literally. It became the largest act of civil disobedience since Israel's founding in 1948. At 7:30 p.m., Netanyahu finally appeared on national television. His face looked weary, his voice hoarse, and for the first time, there was no flag behind him. I know you're disappointed. I know many are angry, but now is not the time to assign blame. Now is the time to endure together. He did not resign. He did not apologize. He simply promised a strategic evaluation and a national reconciliation. But the people were no longer listening. Too late, muttered an IDF veteran, lighting a red flare atop the parliament building. This country has already moved on. Without him, in the corridors of parliament, new strategies were being whispered. Transitional government, emergency elections, international tribunals. The name Netanyahu, once considered irreplaceable, had become a symbol of collapse. A political analyst said on Channel 13, "It won't be Iran that brings down Netanyahu. It will be the Israeli people themselves." 1 week since the first missile struck Tel Aviv. For days since Israel lost control over most of its infrastructure. 2 days since the people flooded the streets demanding their prime minister's resignation. And now the world waits. In the emergency chamber of the United Nations Security Council, every seat was filled. No country remained neutral. Every leader understood one wrong decision, and the Middle East could burn for an entire generation. In Jerusalem, Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly received 2 primary options from the Joint Chiefs of Staff: hand over power to a transitional civilian government, halt all active military operations, and accept international mediation with the risk of prosecution. A massive coordinated strike on strategic facilities in Iran, Hezbollah, and Gaza. A full-scale military operation, launched without full backing from global allies. Then, across the world screens, Netanyahu appeared once again. But this time there was no speech, no lengthy address. He simply said 5 words: "I will not step down." And with that, global tension hit its peak. the U.S. deployed another aircraft carrier to the Mediterranean. Iran raised the alert status of its entire Revolutionary Guard. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Qatar issued a joint call for a non-aggression pact among Muslim nations. China offered to mediate. Russia supported the initiative. For the first time since World War II, the five great powers were directly involved, not in a war, but in trying to prevent one. Regardless of Netanyahu's stance, Israel is no longer the same. Tel Aviv still stands, but not whole. Over 9,000 people have been wounded or displaced. 35% of civilian infrastructure is damaged. International markets are distancing themselves from Israel, triggering an economic crisis that is beginning to ripple into food and energy sectors. More critically, the social fabric is fraying. Ultranationalists vow to defend Netanyahu until the end. Liberals and moderates demand complete reform, and the majority of citizens just want life to return to normal. "We've made it through the darkness," said a Tel Aviv survivor on a local podcast. "But we still don't know whether the light we see is morning or fire from the next strike." And so ends one phase of history, not with victory, not with total defeat, but with a larger question left unanswered. Netanyahu remains in office for now. Iran has declared mission accomplished. Israel has survived, but it must now rebuild both within and beyond.